It's welcome everyone, and great to have you here. With that rough technical start, I think it's a great segue into the topic of today, where we essentially talk about like data on the one side and creativity on the other side, and how these two blend together. I think we work with fashion and lifestyle brands at Depict, and I've always thought of e-commerce as sort of part science and part art, right? It's always, you need to have the data side, but you also need to have the creative side. And all the best brands out there manage to get both of these together in a nice way. And that's what we're here to discuss. And we have Lauren Muir with us today, and you've helped scale Opoly for a couple of years, and now you're independent consultant as well. Great to have you here. And we have Sam Theakston here as well. You're the co-founder of Dashworx, and you guys do data analytics for e-commerce brand, among other things. Great to have you guys here.
Great to be here.
Nice. How are you guys doing after a rough start there with the technical skills?
Yeah, good. Feeling really relaxed, Axel, now after the 15-minute wait. So yeah, there's going to be some good answers. I've had a lot to think about.
That's great. Nice. And we had a little bit of an offer that we sent out. So I think as a little treat to everyone that's managed to stay through this rough intro, everyone who stays till the end, we also have a little nice offer for you where you get like a bit of a run through of your brand together with Dashworx and us from Depict to have a look at a quick data health check from your side, and we'll have a look on the collection page and then search and do a bit of a inspection what could be improved. That's completely for free for anyone that stays till then. We'll send out that link. But with that said, we've had a lot of long intro now, but I want to get into the topic of today that we talked about this, data on the one side, creativity on the other hand, and how we combine these together. So Sam, if we start with you, so much talk about different ways of measuring things in e-commerce. There's a bit of a shift now that people talk about from traditional CRO and A/B testing to more continuous data-driven optimization with AI. How would you describe that shift, and what's really driving it, would you say?
How would I describe the shift? So I think, as you say, e-commerce has come a hell of a long way. And I think creativity has always been a pillar that's always been the same, right? So people have always been very creative, and there's always been great ideas that have helped scale businesses. So we've always had creativity as a constant. However, I think we can all agree that the data piece is a level that just keeps coming up and up and up and up. So AI is almost the pinnacle, or the current pinnacle, as to where the data has got to. And brands now more than ever have got access to data to be able to make decisions from, and direct creative decisions using the data. And I think hopefully what we're going to get into is maybe where these clash, but also actually where these combine and create really, really good focuses. So I think the biggest difference at the moment is just data, and obviously AI needs data to make decisions. So yeah, that would be an initial flavor for what I see at the moment.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And would you say, you work with tons of different brands, how would you say that they tend to measure performance today, and how has that shifted? And maybe what's the one thing that they still miss even after this shift, right?
Yeah, so we work with a lot, and actually I came from Shopify background, so I've been in e-commerce for about 8 years, and actually I used to be on the agency side for brands. So brands like Opoly, we'd be on the agency side and say, these are the things that you should put in place. I think the difference from even 5 years ago, there was quite a lot of people almost putting the finger in the air and being hypothetical example of, we recommend you should change all your add to cart buttons to yellow to try and increase conversion rate. And it would kind of just be great, agency have told us to go and do that thing. It seems to be working a little bit from these high level metrics, crack on and go ahead and do those things. The brands that I see work really well, I know we're speaking very heavily about e-commerce here, but e-commerce and marketing teams are both using a lot of data to blend decisions together. So creative typically sits higher up the funnel, a lot of ad campaigns, and then the further it comes down, it still stays very creative when you get to home pages, collection pages. But then when you get to the checkout, creativity starts to sort of drop off a little. It's kind of like put your card details in. We've got loads of trusted people that want to buy that have bought from us, and enter your details here and check out. But yeah, the biggest shift at the moment is brands that are actually able to track all of this information and start to make decisions as a team. Because I think one of the biggest problems or challenges for businesses as they get more data is that everyone's empowered to look at it, but they're almost doing all of their individual explorations and then coming together and saying, hey, this is what I have found, and it's kind of different to what a lot of people are seeing. So you might do, I don't know, someone's looking at Crow, or head of Crow might do a big Crow audit on the website, and then someone who's maybe the head of e-commerce will do their own little exploration, and they actually find that there's a difference between the two. So brands that are doing things really well are aligning the data towards creativity, still being really creative and leading that as a charge, and then having the data back up the decisions that they're making. And it's true as well. It's not just a little exploration and then, oh, we think it's working. It's like, actually, this is a proper measure for it making a difference.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And we have an expert here, right? So Lauren, like, would you say, like, from your side, when it comes to that, okay, you have data on the one side, you have creativity on the other hand. Like when you worked with Opoly, or now when you're working as a consultant with other brands, like, do you normally get surprised when you feel like, okay, we have this creative intuition that this should be right, but then data showed something else?
Yeah, I think personally, I'm more of the mindset that like data and creativity aren't enemies of each other. They actually, sometimes data can validate creativity. So like sometimes we would do creative things that were not grounded in any sort of data-driven decision making. No one had looked at a metric and went, we need to do this thing to improve that. We would do something completely off the bat and actually it would perform really well despite not being data-driven. On the flip side of that, sometimes we would do things that would look fantastic but have absolutely no measurable impact on results whatsoever. I would still take that as a win, because I think then as long as you're not harming anything, you're not slowing down the site and you're not inhibiting people's ability to check out and stuff, and you don't see any change in metrics, if you're aligning with the brand's, identity and what the brand wants to do and its vision, then it's a win. But I think for me, it's when the creative decisions and the kind of maybe more off-piste ideas that aren't grounded in any kind of data aren't commercially viable or aren't working, then that's my role to step in and say, like, okay, these numbers aren't adding up. Like, something's not right here. But we tried to view it as something that could work really well together, and not something that was, oh, we can't do the creative things because the data says this. Like, we should be using them really hand in hand.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, I think a struggle that many brands have is like, how do you get to that stage? Like, sure, data and creativity, it's definitely what you said, and like what you both said, that they're not in competition, right? But like, how do you operationally within a brand get to that stage? Because you have different departments as well looking at different things. How did you solve for that in Opoly, for example, or do you have any general advice there?
I think what I tried to instill was being data driven, but not data obsessed. And like, sometimes the data doesn't tell the full story, and actually having people sitting, if we just done everything and made every decision based off the data that was in front of us, like, it would have been super easy. It would have been like roadmap, like new item, here's loads of stuff to do. But actually it doesn't tell you everything. And sometimes it just takes people just sitting around a table and brainstorming together and being like, what have we seen out there that's really cool? What would be really cool and new? And I think if you can have like this test and learn mindset, it's optimization isn't just like, here's what the numbers are telling me and here's what I think, and let's try that and see if we can. It has to be collaborative, and it has to be a bit creative as well. And like, we would let the data inform and support people. And I would tell people, do not be scared of data. Use the data to the best of your ability. You have to understand it. And let's not go ahead and just do crazy things and not ever go back and see how they performed. Like, we have to be aware of it, but they have to go hand in hand. So yes, use the data to understand how you're doing and make sure people are literate in data and stuff like that. But actually, we didn't live by the book, because if we did, we wouldn't have had those like eureka moments. Like, I don't know, I know some of us have discussed before, when Opoly did the interactive videos on the PLP, that didn't come from any sort of, we need to increase engagement rate and add to cart rate on the PLP, so let's think of doing this video. And then that came from a, like, we want to do these interactive things that we're doing on social, but put them on the website. How can we do that? And then we collaborated and came together and discussed it, and, ended up performing really well. But it was a definitely a collaborative thing. And that was one of those moments where we were like, wow, that performed so well. It wasn't grounded in data. It wasn't like, there's probably, if we look back, there's probably like behavioral and things that we could tie it back to and say, oh, when, people have these interactive videos, they engage for longer and blah, blah, blah. But there was no hypothesis or anything. There was no plan to that. That was completely unplanned. And it just did really, really well. And I would say like what we did after that was we used data as almost a feedback loop to be like, engagement rate did increase on the page. People dwelled on the page for a bit longer. They were more likely to click on those products. And we used the data in that sense to think, how do we do it better next time? So like, where do we try that again? When is it good to do that? Should we do that on certain pages and not other pages? And use the data to give you discussion points to take back to those creative meetings and fuel them, rather than we could have really got tied down by being like, oh, well, AOV and conversion rate didn't increase on that page. And we could have really got tied to that specific metric. But in actual fact, there was so many other benefits of what we did. And then we took that back to the table and, but that's how we did it at Opoly. I don't have too many other examples from new clients, but I don't know if there's like examples from Depict or how you've seen clients do it.
No, I mean, it's essentially exactly as you said. I think it tends to be that like the initial, for example, when we talk about visual merchandising, so you had your PLPs or like the collection pages that you tried. Love those videos, by the way, with dropping apples, for example. But like it usually comes from like the fashion brands I work with. It comes from the like brand intuition, or like creativity ideas, and like just exploring different ideas internally. Just like I have a sense, a gut feeling that this would look good, like visual merchandising, like these products together in this way or this type of content on the collection page. And then exactly, so you try that, implement it, and then you like follow the data as you mentioned, like to see, okay, what was the short-term implications? Okay, should we continue this? Let's look more medium-term. So that sort of follows that way. It can be the other way around, that you have a problem, like, okay, our conversion rates are dropping on our collection pages. What can we do? So that's more like, okay, you start on the data side and then you go there. But I think in many cases, at least with fashion and lifestyle brands, it starts from that. There's so many great operators within these brands, right? It sits on a lot of, brand understanding. They have the data at a, surface level, at least on the back of our mind. And this comes together in a really nice way. I'm not sure about you, Sam. How have you reasoned about this? Like whether it's coming from the brand side or the data side from the get-go?
I totally agree with Lauren's point. We create these really clever, diagrams, dashboards, and it has all this data that's available to you. And then the client will go quite correctly. They'll say, well, should we just use this? It's like, absolutely not. Like you should be using it as a guide. And it's I guess to simplify it, it's almost like you want to get to a journey, you want to get to a destination. Someone has to come up with the idea that you want to get to that place. And then you use like clever tools like compass, like map to get to that place. So you're constantly looking at the compass and the map to make sure that you're going in that direction. It's the creative that's driving the direction. It's the data that's validating that you're going in the right way. So I would say that that's like the most important thing. And as you just turned to as well, Axel, it comes down to people at the start. Like there's some incredible people that we work with in brand, and they come with these ideas where it's like, right. And then they'll put it in place, and then they'll just use the dashboards or the data or the AI chat or the whatever it is to just validate that it's working the right way and it's on the right course. So yeah, creative first, and then normally creative first and then data to validate the creative.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
You get learnings as well. So if you do a clever piece of creative, I'm sure Opoly from the PLP video positioning, it might not be something that's on site all the time, but next time, I'm sure there's some data that goes with it to be like, actually, we'll just tweak it that way. We'll make the video fully looping instead of just jarring. I don't know if it was or not. I'm just saying as an example, it might be something that might change. So yeah, next time you're there, you've got the data to be like, right, well, this happened last time. Here's what we can do this time.
Yeah. And you get that nice continuous loop where it's like you try things, you get data, you can iterate on that essentially. But one thing that I would guess that many brands struggle with is because you get a lot of data through dashboards, etc., or whatever partner that you have that you set it up, constantly feed in. Like on a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month, quarter-to-quarterly basis, like how do you decide which data actually matters, which one's worth reacting to here and now, and which ones are like, oh, I can ignore this. It's just part of the, continuous exploration. Because it sounds very great in theory, what we're saying, but I think like in the practical day-to-day, that might be more challenging, right? How do you, like Lauren, how do you approach that, would you say?
Yeah, I think I try not get too bogged down with individual metrics and metrics changing like day by day. We would have so many fluctuations, and like if you really got yourself obsessed with them and sat and just stared at them every day, you would like drive yourself crazy with like what could possibly be changing all of this and why is this happening? And you could really overanalyze things. And I think what I tried to do was, does this that I'm seeing, is it a pattern? Does it align with other things that I'm seeing? Say a metric had changed. It might be part of a wider customer momentum. It might be that, something is going a certain direction, but it's never usually just one metric that will drop off or change. There's usually a whole host and a whole story of other things of like, conversion rate's down, but also conversion rate from search is down. And we know that our search users convert a lot higher. So is there something going on with search? And we would dig into it, but we'd have to follow through and try and tell a story. I was not one, I don't ever like to get panicked and be like, guys, why is add to cart rate down? Like, I think it's not the type of way that I want to work, but also it just creates unnecessary panic. It might be nothing. Like, it could be, it could be that there is a reason for it, and you investigate it and you say, yep, it's part of a wider story, and you drop a plan of action of, might be an improvement. It might be, how do we build on this? What happened yesterday that was like so good? And like, where did we start to see this? And we saw this traffic coming from a new traffic source, and how do we build on that? Or it might have went the other way and it might be wrong, but it also could just be a complete anomaly. Like, it could be something totally random. It could be something that, and you don't want to make like reactive changes, off the cuff change too much about what you're doing for just kind of day-to-day changes in data and stuff. So I will go through the motions and make sure that there's not a bug somewhere that's like really causing, add to cart rates like dropped off. Could be something, it could be that we've had a huge influx of traffic for another purpose. I don't know. There's loads of different reasons for it. And if I can rule out all of those reasons, rule out the fact that there might be a bug or there might be an issue with the data, most of the times I don't make any changes on day one. I'll just like monitor it for a couple of days and see if it returns back to normal, because it could just be noise. There's background noise that actually doesn't tell us a lot. And then there's other things that actually signal intent. But I would say that individual metrics and like micro metrics like that, and really getting yourself bogged down on them, is just going to be counterintuitive to the wider thing. You need to look at the bigger picture and say, sometimes we would have things like, conversion rate looked really bad. And I'm like, yeah, but like, we actually made more revenue, and, we've done more. Like, there's so many different things that if you just get obsessed over like one or two metrics or these minor changes, you forget to see the bigger picture and go, actually, I think it's not that bad. Give it a day, it'll return to normal, like, and really not hyper obsessing and over analyzing on things, because
No, that makes sense. Zooming out and like looking at the business as a whole and like how you're doing week over week, month over month, quarter to quarter, etc. And yeah, that makes sense. But Sam, you set up a lot of these things for different brands. You've done it for, in very, very, very large different amounts of, merchants, etc. Like, so many brands, I'd say, they have a good idea of like the basic metrics. And Lauren say, like, don't get bogged down in like an individual metric that change day over day. But would you say there are some like new metrics or like basic metrics that you tend to see that brands still like they should be paying some attention to, but they're not?
I wouldn't say so. No, I think Lauren's point is definitely right. Zooming out and viewing data over longer time periods is always so much more helpful. Like, there's external factors that can be causing things like Trump. People like to bring up Trump's tariffs, and that'll have effects. And like, if you zoom out on enough, we tend to say 3 months is good, like 2-3 months. It just gives you enough of a view to be able to see how things are changing. And when you do zoom in and take a step back, and the goal of what we do basically is to try and reduce admin. We talk about these two things of like admin and innovation. Innovation is like creativity. The more admin you're doing as a person, the less creative you can be, because you're doing more admin. So what we try and do is give people their admin time back and like allow them to be more creative. So Lauren's points about diving into the data, getting obsessed by it, it's really, really not helpful. Using it to validate creative ideas, as we spoke about, yes, but also one that does come up a lot, Axel, is anomaly detection. So, for example, I don't know, let's take conversion rate an example. If you know your conversion rate's static or very close to around about 1.4, like 2, and it doesn't really go along that across the year, your average is just that, it's always like that. What you might want to do is, you don't want to be in the data and be like, what is it today? What is it today? What is it today? Because you're right, you're going to go crazy. But what the software will do is, from what you can do is you can do anomaly detection, where like if it drops down below that line for either a prolonged period of time over a certain segment of time, you can just be notified of that. So if there is something that the team need to look at, it's not about, as we said, getting into the weeds and looking at it on a daily basis. It's just being given a bit of information to say, hey, look, your conversion rate's down at 1.2. Might be worth looking at. And then the team look at it and go, right, oh, I noticed that something happened at the checkout, or the product detail page has got a bug on it or something. That allows people to trust the admin piece of the business, and visual merchandising will feed into that as well. Just the PLP will just update, and then you might say, actually, there's an anomaly on it. You'll go in and manually intervene, but the majority of it is automated. So yeah, it allows people to stay creative and then also be notified when they need to get into the weeds a bit.
That makes sense. But so, for example, anomaly detection that you said, like, okay, finding out if something really, breaks out. Would you say now with AI and all the like progress that we've seen, is it just simpler to reduce that admin piece that you talk about, or does AI bring another element to analytics that we didn't have, let's say, 10 years ago?
So I think here and now in this conversation, it makes it a lot simpler. At the moment, it can tell you what's happened, but what we want to do in terms of making it the next level of what it'll do is to tell you like why it's happening, which is what people want to get to. So AI at the moment, it can allow you to find anomalies really, really quick. You can ask questions of it. It'll tell you data outliers. It just allows you to find things quicker instead of having to go into your own apps, each app, and work out what's going on and try and paint a picture of everything. So it does that for you now. The bit that brands are really excited for and really interested about is telling you why certain things are happening. And the caveat with that is it needs an enormous amount of data to be able to work that out. So data that you've got in Shopify won't, there's a lot in there that brands can be using, but it's not enough to be able to be like, this is why things are happening. You need to be connecting to external sources, and people like to give the weather example. If it's raining outside, am I going to sell more coats? Or, it will get to that point. However, we're not there right now. There's people that are saying they are, but I'm not, from what I've seen, I'm not convinced at the moment. But I think, Axel, in terms of what people are after, it'll go why. At the moment, it's kind of like what's happening and what can I find immediately to, find out the problem and then solve the problem.
It makes sense. And you can just get there way quicker, I guess.
Get there way quicker, yeah. Provided it's set up correctly and you've got everything there to be looking at.
Fair. I think I agree with that. Like more in-depth data, essentially, and getting there faster and like understanding what's going on. I think that's with one of the things that I'm super excited about with our GPT search there, how like e-commerce search is essentially the insights it gives to how customers interact with the brand and the products. So sure, if you have a search for dress or a pink dress, and you can understand that they searched for that and that they bought it. But if you have a GPT search line on the side, you understand what type of questions they ask, for example, about sizing, about the material, what type of occasion, like what type of party they were buying this particular dress for. And that's something that you couldn't capture with a traditional keyword-based search. But now you have that wealth of information that you can then use in how you talk about your product, both in marketing, but also on site, and like what you tend to highlight on the product page to increase that conversion rate. So that's exactly just another case of like AI, how that has really, reduced the time to get to those insights, essentially. Lauren, what would you say, like from a brand perspective, did you see anything at all? Did you see anything today where like, AI is changing how brands work? Is it what Sam talked about, that simplification, or is it something completely new?
I think I feel like simplification is like the first kind of step that people take into being AI ready and wanting to use AI tools and stuff. Opoly as a business is very AI first, and like the team were really open and willing to start, using AI technologies, jumped in like feet first. We were really fast growing, really busy. And I think most of our teams, and I can speak for the e-commerce team, anything that was going to help us, like Sam said, remove admin that we didn't need to be doing was going to help. And I think from an e-com point of view, we've got a massive opportunity to use it, not only to help with the front end customer experience, but also with the operator experience on the back end. Like I was actually speaking to someone about this recently, about if I was to invest in technology now, the way that I would analyze that technology and the way that I would look at from getting demos and stuff, the questions that I would ask are so different to the questions I would ask 2 or 3 years ago. I think a couple of years ago, we onboarded like a large kind of market leading search tool, and I was asking questions about all the different capabilities of what I could do with it. Can I make all of these rules? Can I individually update every single search query? And can I make it really individual? And can I go in and manipulate rules all the time? And it was all about the wealth and breadth of capability on the back end. Whereas now I'm like, how intelligent is your tool and how much of that can it do for me? Like, because we don't have time. And like people, if their data is there and it exists, the AI can do almost just as good a job of interpreting it and understanding where people should be going, what they should be seeing, what results we should be showing to them as we can. And I think I've gone through this phase of like, okay, we've done the kind of manual bit, like we've manipulated the terms, we've done the rules, we've done all these queries, we get it, we've sat and spent loads of time on it. Can AI speed that up a little bit? We've got loads of data to, fill it with. Like, can I repurpose my team and take them away from sitting in the back end, changing rules every day, to getting them to do something else that's actually driven by the AI? And yes, we can go in and maybe manipulate things a little bit and obviously use our trade and knowledge and our creativity. But the bulk of the work, could it be done by an AI tool? And now don't ask about all the different capabilities it's got. I ask how it's self-learning and how it helps to enable teams by removing manual workload. I would, for example, like bundle builders, like at one point, we could launch 100+ products a week, and we'd sit and create bundles and search for the SKU numbers to make sure that the right pair of trousers were set up with the right top and whatever. And now I'm like, AI could read that product image and detect exactly what products are in it and build those bundles for me, even build them dynamically for different users based on what we know about them. All of these things that I'm like, if I went into a conversation with a tech vendor now, I wouldn't be like, and can I sit and manually pick the products that are in these bundles? And it would be, can your AI detect what the correct products to upsell are here? Can your AI detect the correct order to show these products into people to make them convert, rather than me having to sit and go, right, change that ever so slightly to make it a little bit, there's so much work that we've done over the years, and I think we're better off for doing it. Now there's no need, and I would tell people to avoid buying into any technology that isn't putting AI at the forefront of what they're doing, because they are going to be left behind. And I worry that you would end up tying yourself into long contracts. Technology is moving quickly, e-commerce is moving quickly. The thought of being tied into like a 2-year long contract with a vendor, for example, that is currently not using AI, I'd be like, I don't want to be sitting here in 2027 having this conversation when everyone else has got like self-optimizing storefronts and their full shop updates sent individually for every single customer, and people are shopping through Perplexity and whatever, and we're still sitting here not using AI. Like, I don't want that to be, so that's the kind of way that things were changing for us at Opoly. Every decision was, is it self-learning? Can it be automated? Like, and that's not to remove people's jobs ever. It's never to be like, oh, we don't need you anymore because we've got AI. It's, we're going to get AI to take away the boring bits of your job that you hate doing, that are adding no value, that a machine could do, so that we can repurpose you into the creative things. Because I get much more benefit from a team sat around the table, like, what are we doing this quarter? What are we doing this month? What new initiatives are we doing? How are we driving this? What research are we doing? Like, I'd far prefer people to be doing that than dragging and dropping a pair of jeans and a pair of shoes and stuff into a bundle. Like, what's the point?
No, preach. I agree. I think it makes total sense. It ties back to what we said in the beginning, right? Of that, like, okay, the creativity on the one side and the data on the one side, and what you said, Sam, like, okay, reducing admin so you can be more creative, right? So it's not really about like replacing or like letting the AI, if we talk about like collection management, like, okay, make all decisions. It's more like, okay, taking away the admin backend stuff and like suggesting, here are like the data points that you can work with, and like here's visually, and then you come with your creativity and your brand knowledge and implement it from there.
And to just dig deeper on Lauren's point as well, a good point when you evaluate a tech vendor, I think, as well, is tech is sped up like rapidly now. So there's so much coming. Another good thing is that they always should have a very good roadmap as to like what's next. So Lauren made a point about what you're going to be doing in 2 years' time. Might not know 2 years' time because it's going that fast, but might know 6 months, and it might be enough to be like, actually, yeah, we're looking into AI and we're going to get it to do X, Y, and Z. So yeah, roadmap questioning. Businesses should be able to answer that question really, really well now, really clearly, based upon the speed that they should be innovating.
Yeah, and I think if they're not willing to share that, that's a red flag, that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, I might have to change some things internally. I think like we have a very strong idea where we're working and like where we're going, but maybe it's not. I think it's also a red flag with tech or product companies that have a clear idea. If they're not that big, like, oh, in a year we're going to release this, because it will be a completely new, sure, directionally we're going here, but like not exactly this feature. Sure, in the near term, a quarter, maybe I can stretch it 6 months, but people say like, oh, 2027 we'll have this. Red flag.
Not 2 years time, but certainly a roadmap for the next 3 to 6 months should be clear. The prevailing direction that things are going.
Makes sense. We can agree there for sure. And I think we're about to wrap up soon, but I think it's been a great discussion on like this. It's not a competition between data and creativity, and how AI fits into this really allows you to bring these together in a really nice way. I think that's one of the huge enablers that we see within e-commerce. I think looking ahead, talking about roadmaps, etc., what would you say, like, I don't know, what are you most excited about within the next few years? So Lauren, you mentioned it about all the possibilities about AI in e-commerce, but if we talk about here and now in the next year, and then we talk more long-term, let's say in 5 years time, it's hard to, but let's hear some speculations. Like what excites you, what we see in the development now and where we're heading essentially?
I think for the here and now, it actually ties in what we've been saying quite nicely, AI and creativity. So I think AI is going to make e-com brands be more creative, because not only because it's given them the time back and all that to be creative, but because it seems to have reignited people's like passion and things, and like thinking about things like discoverability. I think we had probably all got a little bit, maybe not bogged down, but like, is there a massive difference between all the different traditional search tools out there in the way that they do relevance and the way that they show search results and stuff like that? Is there a huge difference? A lot of tools are getting really similar. A lot of tools are there's a lot of overlap between tools that people are offering and stuff. And I think that AI is going to be the thing that sets that apart. And I think people are excited by the prospect of AI tools because they see it as being a point of difference. And I think people know that potentially in 5 years' time or so, people will be, maybe even next year, people will be shopping fully through AI. People are seeing that websites won't exist in their same format potentially as they do currently, or they won't be fulfilling the same purpose. So I think people are seeing that in the future and thinking, right, how do I make AI work on my website now? But also, how do I make my website work for AI? So like, SEO is never the sexy part of my job or what I did, or for anyone really in the front end. Apologies if you're a massive SEO fan, but I think a lot of the time people who do work in front end and development work and stuff seen it as maybe it wasn't ever my top priority. Other people in the business maybe more in growth and marketing and stuff like that, really focusing on SEO. But AEO or GEO or whatever we want to call it really reignited me to be like, well, I need to get my product data and my schema and everything correct for AI. It's doing the same purpose as SEO. It's all about discoverability. It's just because we're saying it's for Perplexity or whoever, it's different. It seems more important, or like reignited people's interest in it more than Google crawlers. So like people now, if you're doing SEO really well and you've invested in SEO, chances are you'll do well at AEO. People are now going to start optimizing for AEO, and I think it'll also benefit SEO. So I think the AI is getting people more excited about things like SEO, things like on-site search, things like merchandising that previously they've maybe just thought are a function or something that they need to do. Whereas now it's like, it's because it's for AI, it's kind of made it a bit sexier, a bit more interesting. And I think people really they're like, how can we start moving towards this future state of like, everyone's going to have AI agents who shop for them. And I think people now, like me, people realize if they don't do that, they're going to be left behind.
Fair. I like it. I agree. Sam?
Yeah, I think now and 1 year, I think one of the things that AI is going to be able to do is allow teams, business owners, founders, directors, just to ask any question they want about the entire business. So like we're talking about e-commerce, which is obviously an aspect of the funnel, but like all of it, like any marketing data, any e-com data, they'll just be able to say, look, what's my best performing creative campaign? What's my best seller? What do people buy after this product? Like these things are already there. It's just linking it together. I think what I find really exciting about data, and generally I said it at the start, is that it links all of the teams together. I think bigger brands, for no want of trying, they just end up slightly separate on what they're talking about. And actually data is kind of like the mesh and the link between these teams as it moves through the funnel into conversion and then back through retention, back to marketing. And then it like really links the teams really, really well. So I think AI is going to allow teams to be able to be linked and ask questions, and it's going to reduce people's admin. No one wants to do admin all day. It's going to make people more creative. And I do agree with Lauren on that point. And in the long term, I do think that, I mean, long term in AI is an interesting word, isn't it? Because what is going to be long term? But I think to Lauren's point, people are going to be on AI tools and just buying directly from them. And then I think it's likely to become a little bit more interesting. The sales funnel that we know at the moment is just going to become totally different. And actually there might be multiple sales funnels. There might be people coming from Google. There might be people just going straight to the checkout from ChatGPT or Perplexity. There might be people buying things in an AR way, or there might be different channels that we actually find people coming through that we need to measure. And I think there's going to be more opportunity for people around those different channels. It might not be the conventional sales funnel, but there'll be multiple sales funnels that people can go through to buy. And then you're going to want more information to understand where these people are coming from. So I think it's bringing a shift in terms of purchase decisions, but also, as Lauren's point, it's going to allow people to be more creative to understand how to serve those new purchase requirements that people will have and where they're coming from.
Makes sense. I think you both seem in agreement, and I agree as well. I think generally speaking, from a merchant or like back-end point of view, people working at brands is going to remove already now. It's like removing a lot of like the dull work that have people in brands bogged down in sort of like, okay, enriching a product and like adding all these product tags and like, as you talked about, like putting products together in a bundle. I think that's great. From like the customer's point of view, like the end users of the brands, I think this is super exciting. It will really allow for more, the reason you buy a product from a brand is like, okay, you step into that brand universe, you get that curated experience. That's why you go on that direct side instead of like going to Amazon or like buying directly from ChatGPT, which will happen and is happening today, right? But I think like what AI allows is more like, that personalized, curated, nice experience that you get from an in-store. We can take that online and just makes for more, inspiring shopping experiences, right? We have the data to back it up, but just like, it's been a bit dull in many years, like how you shop online. That's what I'm excited about. You can really, like the same way people still go to a store to get that great experience, even though it's easier to just shopping online, we can start to get there online as well, where it's like, feels, fun again to shop online. It's usually very boring, unfortunately. So that's something that maybe you didn't touch upon that I'm super excited about as well.
Yeah, agreed. It's like clienteling, but online through AI.
Exactly. And then, what's exciting is also like it's changing the industry so fast now with AI. So like, a lot of standard ways of working, old legacy solutions that people just gotten used to are like being outcompeted now, which is exciting for everyone in the industry. It'll be more fun to be here. Nice. Sam, Lauren, thank you so much. And thanks everyone who has watched. As we promised in the beginning, we have a little bit of a link anyone who's stayed on. So we'll send it to you afterwards to do a little bit of an analysis of your page. And we appreciate the time. Thanks all.